Good evening, everybody. I'm Roy Firestone, and this is UpClose Classic. He's considered crown royalty in the sport of kings. Wayne Lukas once had a string of 6 straight Triple Crown winners and was the first trainer to pass the $200 million mark in earnings. But in the late 1980s, Wayne Lukas was still pursuing the one goal he had not yet conquered.
And down the stretch they come! Winning colors in front! Here comes 49er on the outside! Lukas and Stevens! It's a driving finish! Winning colors by a head!
Let's talk about getting a monkey off your back with winning colors at the Derby. And we've talked to everybody about the race, and it was a thrilling race from the very beginning, a couple of tense moments there at the very beginning. Why, though, for you, have fillies pretty much been your calling card? Well, you've had some great male horses, but fillies have been Wayne Lukas's calling card and winning colors as well.
Well, I think there's a number of things involved. First of all, we base everything we do on care. I mean, we get into the fact that they have to have the ultimate care and the bloodlines will carry them. And I think that if you pamper a filly a little bit, you have a chance maybe of getting a little more out of her. You can make some mistakes with a colt and he'll overcome it. He's tougher and everything. And but a filly, and this is great, I love to watch these shots, but a filly, I think if you pamper them and give them a little bit of tender loving care, they respond, and that's our whole program.
Winning colors, Marfa, Tanks Prospect, Landaluce, Althea, Life's Magic, Saratoga 6, most of those are fillies. You had a great line about picking out the filly of your dreams. You got to tell the folks what this is the most quoted line, I think, about fillies I've ever heard. What was the criteria now?
Well, somebody asked me what I see in a filly or what I like to see in a young filly, and I made the comment, I said I like to have a head like a princess, a butt like a washwoman, and a walk like a hooker. and
all of those things.
That says it all, because, I mean, if they got that walk, they usually have that stride, and of course a powerful rear end, of course, is great in a racehorse, maybe not in all women, but and she should have that intelligent head like a princess. And people picked up on it and enjoyed it.
How do you know, and you do better than most, a champion when you see one at the sale?
Well, a lot of people have asked me that, and I think it's a combination of a lot of things. First of all, I get a gut reaction very strong when I see all the pieces come together. Most of the horses that I've picked out, Landaluce, Saratoga 6, some of these good horses that we've had, winning colors, when I first see them, I have a certain set of parameters that I've used, and they have to have a certain slope to the shoulder and the hip and all the usual things, but there's a lot, I think, good horsemen find in those things. But usually there's an intangible thing, and it usually gets me right in the middle. And I can't hardly take my eyes off those horses, and when I get that little bit of a butterfly feeling, usually I'm not very wrong.
Ali Sheba is going to win Horse of the Year, the Eclipse Award. That's, I believe, Friday night, the Eclipse Awards here in Los Angeles. All right, tell me about the feeling in your stomach, even though it's not your horse, about Ali Sheba. What is it that you feel when you see that horse on the track?
It's probably like what you'd feel when you see Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson or Larry Bird. It's that same thing. When you see a horse absolutely excel at what he does, and in tough competition, coming through like he did in the Derby or in the Breeders' Cup as we now watch it here, in darkness, and knowing that he has to put it on the line, so to speak, and he has to win in order to cinch the crown. This horse had to win this race. He had to win the Breeders' Cup because Personal Ensign, the horse that was in competition with him, had already cinched her crown. And so he had to produce on that moment. And when they do that, it's special. And I think that it's great that the racing world, the world in general, recognizes that.
You talk about recognition for a few moments. You're a 3-time Eclipse Award winner, and you've all time set the record for earnings, but it was the Derby that somehow allowed you to not have to deal with the critics any longer. What did that Derby victory mean to you, Wayne, in terms of all of that and being recognized now as legitimately, without any more criticism, probably the greatest trainer of all time?
Well, that's nice you say that. I appreciate that, but I think that the Derby, you see, we had set so many records, had champions, and won a lot of the Derby preps. So the media, the press, who really dwell on the Derby as America's race, and rightly so, they had zeroed in on the fact, they said, what hasn't he done? He hasn't won the Derby. So they made a big thing of that. I never felt in my heart that we weren't going to win a Derby. In fact, I told one sports writer, I said, what are the odds that I'll never win one? And of course, everybody kind of snickered.
But you pulled back a little bit, Wayne. I remember years past, you said, yeah, we feel, you've come on this show. We feel good about this Derby. We're going to win this Derby. You've had with Capote, with all these other horses. Last year, I saw you pull back a little bit.
Well, I think I pulled back a little bit because the media consequently was always jumping on us and wanted us to be in the limelight, and then I had a quiet confidence. I felt last year, and more so than any other year, that we had the material, we had the athlete. It was a filly, which made it a little bit left on the shoulder, off the center of the road. And if I would have gone out, I think, and said, not only are we going to win it this year, but we're going to do it with a filly, I think they would have really got into it. So I just took a quiet approach and said, look, she'll make the statement when the time comes. And both Jeff and I, my son, felt very confident about her. We laid back a little bit Derby week and just let it unfold, and it came out and it had the Hollywood ending.
Yeah, I read an article in the paper this week that said something like 8 of the top hopefuls for the Derby this year, in people's minds: King Glorious, Is It True, Fast Play, Winner's Laugh, Your Horse Houston, Rub a Plunder, Great Genes, Easy Goer. Most of these horses will not run in the Derby or have virtually no shot in the Derby. Is that too pessimistic of you?
I think so. It's, you know, this is January, the Derby's in May, and I think what's happened, Roy, is the Derby's getting tough to win. It's getting very competitive. And people are starting to realize, by that I mean owners and trainers, that what you have to do now is you've got to be right on that first Saturday in May. And that takes some planning and preparation. To get a horse ready to run in January, to crank him up in February, which the media would like to see. They would like to have us all
Sure, something to talk about.
Sure, you bet. Articles and everything. I think is not going to work anymore. I think you're going to have to come along a little bit later. And the horses that they are talking about are very much in the Derby picture, most of them. And I think that you'll find that around April they'll be there, and they'll be the ones they will be talking about.
Interesting to note, too, Wayne, that only 6 of the last 20 Derby winners have run as early as January. So that trend is keeping in what you're saying.
That hasn't gone unnoticed by me.
That's right.
Yeah, I won all the preps for years. I made the comment one time that we had won the preps, we had seen our horse in his silks and a post parade, and we sang My Old Kentucky Home, but we hadn't been in the winner's circle, so I wanted to get the last one.
When we come back, the controversy surrounding drugs and horse racing. Welcome back. Drugs in sports. That phrase usually conjures up images of Olympic athletes and steroids, or an NFL player with a substance abuse problem. But there's another segment of sports society where drugs play a critical and sometimes controversial role in the development of athletes: horse racing. Let's discuss, though, a 1979 documentary, a piece done by 60 Minutes, about the issue of doping horses. Some suggested that while it may be legal to use things like Bute and Lasix, that it may be dangerous. The horse doesn't know what he's running on effectively. He's running on plastic legs.
First of all, you have to understand the whole total picture. We're dealing in an industry, Roy, where we're dealing with million-dollar animals. And I think that at the higher level of racing, I'm talking about Belmont Park, Kentucky Derby level, Hollywood Park, Santa Anita, at that level, I think with the caliber of people that are handling these horses and managing them, meaning the trainers, I think that there's a lot of judgment that goes into a decision whether or not to run a horse on butazolidine and Lasix. But let's establish some things first. Butazolidine is an anti-inflammatory drug, and it is not a cure-all. Anybody that's has trained a sore horse, quotation marks, will tell you that Bute will not get a sore horse to the races. Secondly, we now in all of these states have a state licensed veterinarian, a man that is hired by the track and the state, that comes by in the morning and inspects each one of these horses and their gait. At Belmont they do the same thing, Hollywood Park, Kentucky, so forth. So the plastic horse that was referred to in the documentary here, it does not get to the races, butazolidine or no butazolidine. But my contention is this, that with the amount of money that we have involved in these animals and their value, that we are not going to send a horse on the racetrack that we do not think is fit to race. That's a judgment on my part. I'm going to protect the Gene Kleins, the Mel Hatleys, the Wolfsons, the people that we train for.
But you would agree that that's at the money track. Maybe what was the use of the leaky faucet tracks, perhaps?
Oh, the leaky roof circuit.
Yeah, the leaky roof.
Well,
we have some footage. Now, we have some footage here of some breakdowns. The Russ
Sure.
Harris made a study recently, I guess about 3 years ago, saying that with all of these breakdowns, that the breakdowns was increased 4 times over a non-buted horse. Once they used that drug, there were 4 times as many breakdowns. Can you put any credence into something like that?
I don't know where he got his statistics, Roy, but I would say this, that these accidents, and they are bad, are things that are going to happen, I think, with or without butazolidine. I don't know what the studies have proved as New York racing, which does not have butazolidine, as opposed to California.
He was talking about Keystone Park.
Yeah, but what I would say this is, I think that when you get to the lesser tracks, meaning down to the second level or the third level, that I think you will find a horse that's probably not as sound and may need medication to survive, and I use that word loosely, in order to race and to perform on those racetracks. I think when you're running at Hollywood Park, you're going to find that the purse structure and everything is going to keep the better horses on the track.
Before we go to the break, one other issue I want to mention, that is the fact that, well, no one argues the legality, especially in states where it is legal, of using Bute and Lasix, but some have questioned whether Lasix masks other more serious drugs. The use of, say, Sublimase, which is essentially, you know, a strong sedative type drug.
We have very, very sophisticated testing procedures in the state laboratories now, and drugs like that are readily picked up. Heck, I think you could pick up Sublimase, as I understand it, with a basement chemistry set. And so I don't think that that's the fact at all. I think the chemists have proved that you do not pick up, you do not mask drugs with Lasix.
Finally, should the FBI get involved in the investigative process? They have enough problems on their own.
They sure do, and let me say this. Racing has been one sport that has policed its own probably better than any other sport in America. We have always taken great pride on handling our own problems. I think the less that the federal government is involved in sports at any level, whether it be racing, baseball, or anything else, the better off we all are.
Still to come, the legendary intensity of D. Wayne Lukas.
I made a promise to myself. I thought if God ever gave me a talent, that I would never waste a day or an hour developing it to its fullest.
Welcome back to UpClose Classic. I'm Roy Firestone. D. Wayne Lukas is one of the most successful trainers ever in the history of horse racing, and he owes that success to his storied intensity.
Bobby Adair, the quarter horse rider, once said, "I hope I die on the same day of Wayne Lukas, because I know no matter how much I screwed up in life, when we get to the pearly gates, Wayne will get both of us in. You can talk that well." But it's more than just talk with you, it's action. And at an advanced age, closing in on 5-0 or right about, you still get up 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning.
3:30 a.m., right.
Yeah. Every single day of your life, you're out there with your son, Jeff. And the question is, why? Why do you work so hard? You work like a dog, Wayne.
Well, I think we're in a competitive business. I always feel like somebody's going to be catching us. But I enjoy it. I don't know that I could do it any other way. I think that it's a real serious fault in life if you don't give it your best shot. I always look at people that, you know, you see in athletics and in sports, you see the guy that's got all the ability, you know, and he doesn't give it his best shot. I sat in a locker room one time in college and listened to a coach, Johnny Erickson, give a very, very stirring talk about giving it your best and doing your best. And I saw guys looking out the window and staring at the ceiling and everything, and I thought to myself, here are guys that have so much ability, it's so much going for them, and they're just not using it to their best advantage. And I made a promise to myself. I thought if God ever gave me a talent, that I would never waste a day or an hour developing it to its fullest. And I made that pledge to myself, and it's kind of carried me through life.
You have gotten a full day's work, both figuratively and literally, in this sport. I mean, up at 3:30 in the morning and out at that track. What fires you up about early morning at the racetrack? We have some beautiful footage of what it's like in that morning.
I think that it's probably the most beautiful time of the day. It's you one-on-one. You see the product that you're working with. It's a master plan that you're bringing them to a Derby or a Preakness or a Breeders' Cup. And it's just it's a great serenity. It's in a setting like Santa Anita or Belmont Park. You just can't beat it. I ride a nice saddle horse. I get out there. My mind clears from all the clutter of everything else and the business side of this thing that I'm in. And I just like the one-on-one relationship with just me and a good horse.
It's amazing, and it sounds almost comical that you relate well to horses. But there are people who suggest that the deep, dark secret of Wayne Lukas is that horses understand Wayne, and Wayne understands the horse. You think it's true?
I tell my assistants that they should constantly think like the horse, that one of the keys to training is to put yourself in the horse's position. And one of my favorite statements is that the horse is always right, no matter what the situation, the horse is right. Make me an attorney for the horse and I'll never lose a case. And by that I mean no matter what track or how he messes up, if he fights the gate, he bears out on the turn, that there's a reason behind that and that the horse is always right. And I think you got to think like him in order to train him, and you got to have that feel. And if you don't, I think you're missing the boat. And another thing is I think that a lot of trainers dwell on the physical side of getting him fit, heart rate, aerobic heartbeat, lung capacity, and so forth, and neglect the mental side. I think a horse has to have that spirit, has to have that try, and that's true with any athlete.
I want to talk about your spirit, if it's not too personal for a few moments. Married 3 times. In this Bill Knack article in Sports Illustrated, it said that you were obsessed to a point where when you sit down for dinner, it's, let me have a Coke and a menu, and in 10 minutes, you're up and out. That you told your wife, your recent wife, your new wife, relatively new, honey, I'd like to take a nap right now. Wake me up in 7 minutes. Right. I mean, you don't like to waste time. I mean, time is really precious for you.
Yeah, on going to a restaurant, I always, you know, of course, they bring the menu, and I'm a non-drinker, non-smoker, and so I always order just a Coke, but of course the waitress always wants to leave. So I always say, bring me a Coke, leave the menu, but don't go away. And she'll say, have you decided? I say, yes, just take me about 30 seconds. I think that it's kind of a waste of time to sit there for an hour or so.
Now the other guy says, well, why? How is that a way to live, though? Cherish your time to eat. Cherish your day. Don't hurry. Slow down. Smell the roses, and I don't mean just the roses of the Kentucky Derby either.
Well, I think that what happens to us is that we get our lift, we get our cherishing of the day through different things. Sure. I get it through an intensity of going out and trying to accomplish things. I keep score on everything I do. And so what I do is I want to eat and get on to the next task, and that's my way of really getting what maybe some people get out of a golf game.
How much is money still the motivator for you?
It's a way of keeping score. I don't think the material things are as important. If somebody were to ask me right now what my net worth is, I could not tell you. I know it's a lot better than it was a few years ago, but it's just a way of keeping score for me. I enjoy some very nice material things, but the thing that I like is the sense of competition. I like to take on Lasborough and Charlie Whittingham, Woody Stevens, and you know, it's a funny thing. We'll win a race, and we won't even get the horse cooled out and back to the barn. I'm thinking, where can I run him again, and where can we take him on the next time? I thrive on it.
I had a chance to really explore and find out a little bit about why he feels the way he does, but he also has a philosophy that he embodies in what he calls the trainer's dozen. It's a list of 12 qualities of life to live by. It includes things like the value of time, the success of perseverance, the pleasure of working. But down in the list, there's one that really knocked me out, and I think it's true. The power of kindness. In the final moments here, can you capsulize that power?
Well, I made up that list and talked about that, and I added that because I think that nobody gets anywhere. Roy Firestone didn't get his awards and get where he is in life. Wayne Lukas didn't get where he is in life, or Michael Jordan or Larry Bird or any of us get where we are at the pinnacle of our careers without a lot of help along the way. And I know nothing that feeds that as much as kindness. And I think that if you show that kindness along the way to those people that are genuinely working side by side and have your best interest at heart, they push you or pull you with them. And this has always been a big thing. I've always told my help, never worry about who's getting the credit, because amazing things will happen when you divorce yourself from that, when you don't worry about who's getting credit and what you're doing.
Up next on UpClose Classic, the unlikely friendship between D. Wayne Lukas and Bobby Knight. Welcome back. D. Wayne Lukas didn't set out to be a trainer. After college, he was a high school basketball coach in his native Wisconsin. And it was during this time he met and became friends with Bobby Knight. It's a relationship that survived and was strengthened by a tragic episode in Lukas's life.
You have a tendency to turn to people that have a certain strength and that you know have that strength, and Knight was one of those.
Wayne Lukas is the world's most successful horse trainer. He's also Bob Knight's friend. When Lukas's son Jeff was near death after being trampled by a horse, it was Bob Knight who responded in the crisis, and Lukas will never forget it.
Jeff was in a coma for 32 or 3 days, actually life support stopped on 2 different occasions. Things were very, very tough. Knight called. He called when it happened. He called every day, even after, long after it looked like things were going to be okay. Jeff was in rehab, and we knew that A, wasn't going to lose his life, B, he would come back to some level of proficiency in his motor skills and mental skills and so forth. I could never call Bob. I wanted to talk Indiana basketball. I wanted to share my thoughts on basketball. The basketball was secondary to my concern for Jeff. Always, how's Jeff? How's the therapy going? What is he doing? How far along is he? But always, always Jeff first.
And so, when it looked like Jeff was going to be okay, you would start to pick up the phone and call Bob, and he didn't want to talk basketball, did he?
No, never. At any time, Roy, you knew, see, his priorities are always going to be that way. That's one thing a lot of people don't understand. The basketball was secondary to my concern for Jeff. Always, how's Jeff? How's the therapy going? What is he doing? How far along is he? And then after all of that conversation, I could probably get him around and say, look, I thought you looked good against Illinois. Was the spacing okay for you? I thought maybe your spacing. I thought the down screens were a little sloppy. We'd get into all that, but always, always Jeff first.
It doesn't surprise you, but it surprises just about everybody else. This guy, this ogre, has a heart and compassion and sentiment.
Well, I don't think anybody that knows him ever felt that way. I never, see, I don't make that assumption. I don't make that relationship at all in my mind. I have never ever thought of him that way because I've gotten to know him on a one-to-one personal basis, and I don't see that side.
What's this guy taught you about what real winning is?
Well, you know, my relationship with Bob, Roy, is unique in that, you know, every once in a while in your life, you'll run into somebody that what you believe in, whether it be coaching or training horses, your ideals, your thoughts on maybe the best approach to success falls into line with their thinking. And you know, as a former basketball coach, our paths crossed a couple of times, but we really never got to know each other. I sat in on some clinics and everything. I was moderately impressed. I was impressed with his reputation, but it wasn't until after I left coaching, got into horse racing, and we had a little bit of time through a mutual friend, Pete Newell, to get one-on-one that I really, really started to appreciate what Bob Knight stands for and what he's all about. And I could relate to that in my profession, even though I'd already left coaching.
To use it in horse parlance, is he a great jockey on some mediocre horses that bring him into the winner's circle? Or does he have the great horses and he rides pretty well?
No, I think that he makes a difference as a coach, and I see it all the time.
We'll be back with more on Up Close Classic after this. D. Wayne Lukas may wind up becoming the most prolific horse trainer who ever lived. This for a man who probably hasn't missed a sunrise in 25 years. He's built his career on 4 legs, and like the noble creatures that have carried his winners, his destiny runs like the wind. I'm Roy Firestone. Thanks for watching Up Close Classic. We'll see you next time. Good night.